evening again, and welcome to a panel discussion about the film Waiting for Superman. I've already introduced myself, but I didn't introduce our sponsors. We are co-sponsoring tonight's event with the Missoula Education Association, the Missoula County Public Schools, and the Wilma Theater. The Missoula Education Foundation is an independent 501c3 organization, and that's useful to know in this time of last-minute giving. Thank you. We're on the web, too. You know, I don't know if y'all know about the web, but yeah, we're there. The foundation's dedicated to helping students in Missoula County Public Schools connect with school, connect with education, and connect with the resources in this great community. A little more than a week ago, we found out that the Wilma Theater was scheduling the movie Waiting for Superman. This documentary had stirred up passionate discussions about public schools everywhere it was shown. It was featured on the cover of New York Magazine with the headline, "Can One Little Movie Save America's Schools?" Well, can one little movie save America's schools? With a question like that out there, we knew that Missoulians were going to have a lot to say about it, as the rest of the country has. Pardon me. This event tonight is our attempt to make the community conversation positive. We want it to be helpful for the 8,400 students in Missoula County Public Schools. I want to thank our co-sponsors and all of you. I believe everyone here cares about our public school students. Remember that no matter what you thought of the film, you all have that in common. Our moderator tonight is Dr. Jim Lopatch. He's a native of Great Falls and a graduate of Carroll College and the University of Notre Dame. He earned an AB in philosophy there and a PhD in American government and public law, respectively. At the University of Montana, he is currently professor of political science and served formerly as department chair, associate dean, associate provost, and assistant to the president. His teaching has covered American politics and law, and his scholarship has included constitutional law, Montana politics, and social studies education. And right now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Lopatch, and he'll be our moderator and introduce the rest of our participants on the panel. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much. What I'm going to do is first run through a little bit of the ground rules of this evening, of the panel and of the discussion, and then I'm going to introduce the panelists. We're going to begin with short discussions here at the table. I'm going to ask some questions to the panelists, and I would like the panelists to give a very short, focused answer of about 2 minutes, and then we'll let the other panelists comment on those responses. So we're going to have a little short give and take here to how to get things warmed up, allow you to write questions and get the questions collected. Then after that, your questions will be brought to the table, and I will ask those questions in the order that they're given to me, and I'm not sure, may or may not direct them to the panelists, but allow the panelists ample opportunity to comment on the questions, and I'll feel free of cutting off the discussion and moving on so we can keep the ball going for about an hour. Now the panelists, I think the panelists are very well chosen given the topic of the film, that their backgrounds, I think, allow positive and negative critique of the film. On my far left is Janice Bishop, and she has lived in Montana for about 40 years. She has a master's degree in curriculum and instruction from the University of Montana. She has been a teacher in public schools for 22 years. She is presently president of the Missoula Education Association and has been very involved in union and curricular activities in the community. So you can see that she certainly should have some position on the film. To my immediate left is Dr. Alex Apostle, who of course is the superintendent of Missoula County Public Schools. Dr. Apostle is in Missoula, is responsible for 17 public schools. He has worked for 40 years as a public school administrator in Washington and now in the state of Montana. His experience in Washington was primarily in Tacoma, and he has been a principal in a number of public high schools. His undergraduate degree is from the University of Puget Sound. He has a master's and a doctorate from the University of Idaho. And on my immediate right is Mr. Russ Fletcher, 30 years experience working with companies, with consumers of public education, the graduates of our schools and universities. The companies that he's been involved in have ranged from Fortune 100 companies to startups, new companies getting off the ground. His philosophy is that education is a key element in just about everything we do in our society. His organization, the Montana Associated Technology Roundtables, has as its motto, "The state with the best education wins." Professor Rhea Ashmore then is on Russ's right. She is a professor in the Department of Curriculum and Instruction at the University of Montana in the School of Education. She is an author concerning literacy, reading, and she also has spent a considerable amount of time in China, and so she has a comparative perspective on education, China versus the United States, and different approaches. She holds an honorary position, honorary professor at a Chinese university. And then at the far right, who is presently a consumer of education here, Chad Engstrom, a junior at Hellgate High School. He is a graduate of C.S. Porter. When he graduates from Hellgate, he is planning to enter the university outside of the state of Montana and pursue pre-medical education prior to going to medical school. He is very involved in indoor and outdoor track and in speech and debate. So that's just some quick thumbnail sketches of those of us at the table. And my first question is for Dr. Apostle. Alex, I'd like you, in very briefly, a couple minutes, and then others can comment on your answer. Concerning the film that we have all seen, what would you say is of value? What is something of value generally, and we'll get down to Missoula later, but generally that you think we can take away from it?
The fact that the film was produced, the fact that it is a focal point in our country today, and it's extenuated through this movie, I think is wonderful. Personally, I believe that education, public education, is the greatest institution in a democracy. It is the core of our country. It is the core of all of our beliefs, and I believe that this movie has brought forth the importance of education in general.
Okay. Would anybody else like to comment, which maybe something that Alex didn't say that you saw as something of real value we should take away from the film?
I applaud the comment, knowledge is power. It was exciting to see that mentioned in the film, and obviously it's a tenet that we hold dear to our hearts here in Western Montana as well.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to go to Janice Bishop. Similarly, but from a different perspective, Janice, what would you say was an obvious weakness to you of the film?
Well, for us here in Missoula, for me, the most obvious weakness is that this film was focused on Los Angeles, New York, and Washington, D.C., not Missoula, Montana. And for me, that was the greatest weakness. To stereotype public schools, public education, public school teachers, and teachers' unions based upon the examples set by the students, the families, the charter schools that were portrayed in the film, I think does a disservice to everybody else in public education. And there are a lot of teachers here in this room, and not one that I have seen here tonight is a teacher that Michelle Rhee is talking about.
Okay, very good. Any other comments about weaknesses?
Well, I'd give a counter comment. I went to Carmont High School, which was a movie was made about it. I can't remember now, but it was talking about a difficult school system. And it's right up the road from Woodside High, in the middle of Silicon Valley. So I think that having lived there, there are some similarities, I think, between Woodside and that neighborhood and Missoula. And while it's not as dynamic as, say, the inner cities, there are some things I think we can learn from Woodside High as an example.
Okay. My question for you, Russ, was, and that's kind of build on just what you said. Did you see anything in the film that you thought was especially applicable to Missoula? Things that we could build on, things we could implement here?
I don't know about specific things. I mean, every time I watch this movie, I cry. And I'm not ashamed to say that. My son worked on the movie. I've known about the movie since it was first started. And it's so powerful. And while Missoula may not have the extent of the problems, I think some of the programs that we're looking at are looking at those inner city schools that are doing well, looking at schools that aren't doing well, and I think we're going to get some great ideas from those as Missoula schools move forward.
Okay, good. Rhea Ashmore, at the end of the film, in kind of summarizing the points made, the film focused on certain keys to reform or keys to educational success. Things like excellent teachers, world-class curriculum, high expectations for all, accountability. Now, you're on the faculty of the College of Education at the University of Montana. Did you see the film as somewhat of a criticism of what you do and your institution does in terms of preparing excellent teachers?
Actually, I applauded the ending of the film. That list is exceptional. It is correct. It applies to us. It's very positive. It's what I witnessed doing, what we are doing, faculty, staff, students, teachers, administrators in our Missoula community. One line, I actually wrote it down, one line from that closing segment. People are doing it every day here. And it's true. We are doing right things here. I was not disturbed by inferences regarding quality teachers. Indeed, an effective teacher is key. And I believe and know how well we are training our teachers here. We have an accreditation procedure. We collaborate with the Office of Public Instruction. In fact, collaboration is key. So, on the positive side, the ending is optimistic. It does applaud what we are doing. Generalizing on the negative side, what a sad state of affairs that urban communities have to rely on lotteries. How fortunate we are to live in a community where we do not have to determine where our children go to school by a lottery, with the inference in the movie that if I don't win, I'm a loser. What happened to those youngsters who did not go to their the winning school? Hopefully they're successful as well. And attitude was another variable that just came through. Attitude.
I wanted to focus then. I'm going to make a comment, and then I'm going to pass on with a question to Chad Engstrom, our student panelist. But I think, I've always thought, this is just a personal comment, I always thought that, and I always heard professional educators say that their profession is the most important of all professions, and I think that's so. I think it's certainly as important as engineers or doctors or lawyers or whatever. But I think that professional educators act less like that than people who are in professional education in the areas of law and medicine, et cetera, that too willing to take on all comers, not willing enough to screen out poor candidates. And I'd like to return to that. And Chad Engstrom, you are our student, and you are, I presume, living at home with your family. And I thought that one of the things that had been left out of the movie explicitly, not implicitly, but explicitly, and it's been mentioned in the criticisms of the movie that I read, and it's this: what about the role of parents? What do you have to say about the factor, how parents contribute to this educational success of their children in terms of the role they play in their education?
Okay, so I think that parents are actually key in the way that a child is educated, but then again, there's only so much a parent can do. Your parent's not with you every day at school, but having a parent at home or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, someone to push you is really important. That push factor, whether it be from any adult, is really necessary in my opinion. But then again, you have to consider education falls back on the teachers. There's only so far that a parent can push until it becomes what the teachers are teaching the kids and what's going on at school. Because your parent can be as supportive of you as they want, and they can do everything in their power to help you, but there's only so much they can do.
Did you think the 4 or 5 students that the film focused on, would you say that their parents were involved?
Yeah, well,
or were they absent from their education?
I think they're obviously involved if they're trying to get their kids into such good schools. I didn't quite understand what their whole homework schedule was. I noticed with one of the younger girls, her dad was always present when she was doing homework, which I think was a good thing. Is I didn't quite understand if he was pushing her to do it, but he was always present, and I don't know, I felt like that was left out. I didn't really understand what exactly the parents did during the movie.
But I was wondering whether there's a base of the triangle there that the film did not focus on, that is, the many, many students whose parents do not care and are not involved. And that's something we maybe should be concerned about. Well, are we ready to take questions then, and then the audience can get involved in responding to your observations and your questions? What we're going to do is I will ask the question, and then members of the panel can respond. I'll recognize them and respond, and then after we're done with the question, then you feel free to go to the microphones and ask a follow-up question if you wish. Our first question is this: can you explain why charter schools are not an option in Montana? And who would like to start that?
It's the law.
Hmm?
Isn't it the law?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, currently, there's no law that allows charter schools. And I know that every 2 years it comes up, and I think it's coming up again in 2011. But currently, charter schools are not allowed to exist, primarily because public school funding cannot go to private institutions.
Okay, does anybody else want to comment on charter schools as something that could be, should be implemented in Montana?
Let me ask the audience, how many would like to see charter schools in Montana? Not that many. Interesting.
Charters are public schools.
It depends the way they're structured. Go ahead.
There are many formats concerning charter schools. It depends on how they're developed, and they vary, the laws vary from state to state. And Janice here indicated that here in Montana currently, we can't fund charter schools. Now that may change in the future, but currently we cannot.
Okay. Yes. If there's a microphone, would you use the microphone, please? So what we'd like now are follow-up questions concerning charter schools.
It's not a question really, but just my comment. That's what bothered me about this documentary is it's simplistic, and it was essentially very limited in the view it gave. You're quite right, Dr. Apostle, about charter schools. Everybody gets the idea that charter schools are all public. Well, they are essentially public, but they can be run by private entities, profit, nonprofit, depends on the state. There's about 4,600 around the country. I mean, if we look at something they haven't mentioned in here, magnet schools have been around for a much longer time, and those are strictly public schools. And there's a lot of things about charter schools they did not reveal. And there's a lot of things they picked out just to fit their thesis. And that's how you make documentaries. You got a point to sell, and you're selling the point by showing the things you want to see. And there's a lot of stuff about charter schools people need to look into before they really jump on the bandwagon. Even though I know that our president and our education secretary are pushing this aspect of it as a charter school, totally ignoring the community schools that have been around a phenomenal time and the magnet schools that have been around even much longer than both.
Jim, may I comment? Say something?
Yes, we have a comment and then the next question from the floor.
They did mention one statistic which I want to underscore. 1 out of 5 charter schools outperform public schools. The fact is that 2 out of 5 don't perform as well. And so I think we have to be very, very careful to think that charter schools are the answer. The other issue is the Harlem Children's Zone, the Jeffrey Canada school that was so favorably portrayed in the film. They have an $84 million budget. And I think that that's, you know, they didn't focus on the idea that money is an issue. And I'm sorry, $84 million is a lot of change. And that says to me that money is an issue.
Okay. Now you have a question about charters?
I just wanted to comment on the question that was previously asked.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Charter schools could be in Montana. To my knowledge, every bill that has become before the legislature on charter schools that I can remember wanted money to be filtered not through a public entity. They also wanted to ban unions. There were a whole series of things that they demanded to have them. But to my knowledge, a district could start a charter school as long as the money comes through the district. As Randy York said, more of a magnet school. The concept is the same. One of the problems you have to think about in charter schools in Montana, that's possible in a city like Missoula or Billings or Great Falls. But for the vast majority of Montanans, there's only one school. And there aren't many kids to attend it. 45 kids in a high school. So in some ways, it's possible in Montana. In other ways, it isn't. It is possible to form a charter school now, and as Janice said, the money has to come through the public school.
Yes, Jan.
So like the whole concept of charter schools, that just sounds like a lot of time and effort and money to like build new institutions. And as she mentioned that like some cities only have one high school, I don't know logistical stuff because I'm only 16, but I am interested if there are private entities who want to build these charter schools, how come they don't just want to funnel money into like already existing institutions and just trying to make them better for everyone to attend?
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question, which has to do with
Sorry.
the length of the school year and the length of the school day. The questions go together. They are, can we go to year-round schools in Missoula? can we increase school hours in Missoula? And if these are desirable reforms, how would we pay for them? Who would like to? Alex.
Well, number one, I think the issue of extending the school day and extending the school year to include summer school where students can make up credit or enrich their educational experience would be wonderful. Summer school, for example, not having a full-blown summer school program for our kids that throughout the educational spectrum, those that are having difficulty and those that want to enrich their experience, I think that that's a shame. We should have enough funding to have summer session for our students, K-12. I was shocked when I first came here 2 years and 4 months ago that we didn't have a full-blown summer school program. That needs to happen, but again, it's a funding issue. I think the key here is, with this movie and the emphasis on education in our country today, I think we're going to move forward, and I believe our politicians and our leaders are going to finally say we need to put more resources into education. At the same time, we need to perform, and we need to be accountable. And I would just like to quickly state the following. In this district right now, and please reflect on the movie, the number one goal, measurable goal in our district, is that all students will be successful academically and that they will all graduate from high school regardless of their circumstances and abilities. Did you hear that in the movie? I did. And we're saying that in Missoula, and we're making that happen. The second goal in Missoula is to make sure that we are all accountable. And we have done some things in Missoula in terms of the teacher evaluation and principal evaluation system and my evaluation system as a superintendent to make sure that everyone in this district is accountable to one thing, and that is that all students are going to be successful and that we're doing good things in the classroom. And that's happening. And let me just stop there very quickly. In my tenure here, I have visited over 300 classrooms. That's quite a few classrooms. And I can honestly say that a great majority of those classes were absolutely superb. We had some that needed some work, but the majority, trust me on this, and I've been in this business a long time, we're doing the job in Missoula, and we're getting better every single day. The third issue is professional development, having the resources to provide our teachers and staff with the best professional training. That costs money. We don't have it, but we're doing the best we can. The fourth goal is making sure that we are constantly reflecting on how we do our work and we improve the system by restructuring the system. And the final measurable goal is that parents and community are vital to our success. And we're reaching out in every way possible to make sure that everyone is involved in the educational process. And I'm proud to say this, it's happening. The people of Missoula really, truly care about their kids and about their schools and about their community. We are, in effect, a charter school. We've got 8,400 kids. 8,400 kids. And what I said when I first came here, if we can't be the best school district in Montana and the best school district in America, it's shame on me.
Okay, would anybody else at the table like to comment either on the question about the length of the school year or on Alex Apostle's remarks?
Can I question a question? So I guess one thing I'm a little bit confused about is your summer school program, would students who want to get additional credits in high school be able to do that? Is that what it's entailing?
Well, I would look at a summer session where it would offer dual credit opportunities, where we would coordinate with the university, the College of Technology, adult education, so that students would have a variety of options in terms of enriching their educational experience. That's something we really need to work towards, and we are.
And also, with the idea of extending the school day, how would that affect kids in sports, after school activities, and also would that decrease the amount of homework students have?
Well,
Because if I'm at school
all
longer, I don't want to have
all I can tell
homework.
you is that extending the school day is something that we would have to really analyze and research and make sure by lengthening the school day, it was for the right reasons. And there have been schools that have lengthened the school day and lengthened the school year, and there has not been any significant difference in student achievement. The key is to make sure that our teachers have the best tools to teach in that classroom. We need to be supportive of them, we need to train them, and the expectations in relation to that issue need to be high.
Okay, I think we have these questions about school day and school year. Okay, good, go ahead.
Okay, I was wondering as far as like the question about the school day, I think, you know, its basis comes in trying to improve in education, but it's really more in a, you know, quantitative matter, and I was wondering, you know, is there going to be any efforts to improve schools in a qualitative manner, such as providing AP classes which are currently not there? Like, I go to Hellgate right now. We do not have an AP chemistry class. We don't have, or anything of the sort. I would love something like that. And also an additional comment, as far as summer programs, there is currently in place a high school pilot program. I took it this past summer to take courses at the U. Awesome program, already in place, fantastic. It allows kids, although they do have to pay to enroll in the U and take almost any class that they like. Currently I'm enrolled at the U and at Hellgate, and you know, I think that program is spectacular and really doesn't actually need a ton more work to it. But you know, back to the initial question, are we going to work on qualitative, you know, initiatives to improve a lot of some of the classes as opposed to lengthening the day?
Okay, is that, does anybody want to respond to that? Janice, do you?
Well, I was going to respond to Dr. Apostle.
Okay, let's see if there's any response to.
I agree, we need more AP classes. But also, I think that you have a really vital point in the idea that we do need to hit what's wrong before we can extend things. We need to fix what's wrong in the system before we want to lengthen a day, because if something's wrong in the school system, why do you want to make it wrong for a longer time during the day? So that's just, and I think that she had a really, really good point in saying that we need to fix what's broken.
Russ or Rhea?
I'd just like to make one comment about summer programs. Unfortunately, not in your district, but at Hellgate District 4, our college, the Phyllis J. Washington College of Education, has a partnership with Hellgate Elementary, where for 30 years we have run a 6-week literature camp for youngsters that have reading and writing needs. It costs nothing for the students, and in turn, the win-win is we get to train fine literacy teachers.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have a suggestion to the young lady that just asked about AP chemistry. The new president of the University of Montana, Rice Engstrom, is a chemistry focused individual. I'd talk to him. He's looking at how can the university kind of help and reach down into the school system here. And he'd be a big proponent of what you're asking for, I think. He just came on board 2 months ago.
I can't hear her.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
You're going to have to use the microphone when you
needs to get up
comment.
close.
And Dr. Apostle, we have another questioner before you come back to the microphone. Dr. Apostle?
Yeah, I would just like to comment that one of our goals is to make sure that we have equity in all of our high schools regarding advanced placement. We don't have that equity available currently, but we're training our teachers and we're going to be implementing advanced placement courses that are equitable across the board for all of our high school students. And as some of you might know, we are also now a candidate for the International Baccalaureate program, which will be positioned at Hellgate High School, and it will be open to all high school students very shortly. The first class will enter, I believe, in 2012.
Okay, good. Now we have another questioner.
It was brought up about accountability for teachers, and one of the questions that we had for that you were talking about, Dr. Apostle, with accountability is we find it very difficult when our principals are being called out of the building for meetings after meetings after meetings and trying to find the time that principals for teachers that are struggling, that may need some extra help, that need to have somebody in there helping them. If we can keep those principals in our buildings, not only for helping teachers be accountable, but also for all the plethora of student problems that we have. So I'm just throwing that out as, you know, one of the ways that we can maybe improve our school systems is keeping those principals there and helping us be accountable to do all that work that they're supposed to be doing.
I think we're all involved in the issue of accountability. There's no question that the principal is the instructional leader, but at the same time, what we're trying to create in our schools is to engage all staff in the process of educating our students. And we're doing that in a number of different ways. Teachers working together, our TOSAs, for example, teachers on special assignment who are working with teachers, that all assists the teacher in the classroom. The principal can't do it all. Teachers need to work together to help one another, to share best practices, and that's happening in our school district. So I think it's important that we have a balanced perspective as it relates to the role of the principal and the role of the teacher and their responsibilities.
Just to clarify, is it when if there's a teacher that's coming under you know, kind of the microscope for their teaching, is it the TOSAs? Who's supposed to go in and do the evaluation on the teachers? For, you know, who does that?
Well, the principal does that evaluation, but we want a system that is not just involved in the evaluation of the teacher. We want to develop a system, and I know we're in the process of doing that, and it's happening, of supervising the teacher, assisting and supporting the teacher in terms of any issues that they may have. Just to go into the classroom and evaluate the teacher, that's not enough. We need to have a support system for improvement.
Okay, I'm going to say what our next question is here. And
actually, I have something about that. Can I ask real quick? I'm over here.
Oh, excuse me.
It's about the same thing, the same issue. So can I just ask a question?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So, and I guess this is maybe a little bit for Janice as the union president. Being a teacher myself, also being a person who strongly believes in union, I have concerns about ways that the union does tie hands. In particular, I've mentioned before peer review. I know that this is like this big taboo, and I think that's something that the union ought to consider. You know, I looked at the Unified California School Districts in Hayward, where my friend went on special assignment, and he became a teacher coach, was thought of as a master teacher, and he would go in and out for an entire year and work with teachers who were struggling. And I think it's something maybe, Janice, if you could comment, or Dr. Apostle, about something we ought to do with our school district, because I know that exists out there in school districts who have failed or had failing marks and who have increased dramatically by putting master teachers in those classrooms, helping those teachers evolve.
I'd like to comment. Thank you. Interestingly, in China, lesson study is practiced widely. Teachers watch other teachers teach on a regular basis. The practice of teaching English in China is law. It starts at grade 3. So there are English competitions where master teachers present in front of scores of their peers how to best teach lessons regarding English. It's very competitive, but at the same time, it's a way for teachers to share what they're doing, to learn from one another. And professionally, I have not witnessed lesson study the way it's practiced in China.
Do you want to comment?
I do, thanks. Hi, Jay. Hi. Several years ago, I was involved in this sort of infant program of peer collaboration in the classroom. And it was great, but it was sort of a testing ground to see if it might work. And it was one of the greatest experiences. I will tell you that today I have to give credit to our Human Resources Department in Missoula County Public Schools, because we do have a peer kind of master teacher almost an ad hoc program right now for struggling teachers. And so these master teachers are spending time coaching in the classroom. And I think that it is showing some success. You know, these are just little steps. Personally, because of my experience, I'm all for a peer collaboration. We won't have teachers evaluating teachers, but for sure we can have teachers coaching, helping teachers. I think that's important. And I also want to comment on something else that I am very vested in and particularly proud of. That's our teacher evaluation system. It's only in its second year of implementation. And Missoula Education Association, the union of which I am president, was a 50% collaborator, all right? We were half of the committee that created this system. And I want to also emphasize that a great part of what we finally adopted, we got from the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers. These are organizations that are proud of their profession and they only want it to get better. And so I thought that was important. And about the extended school year and day, we can talk.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm going to move on. We've gone kind of far afield from the question concerning school day and school year, the length thereof. The next two questions I'm going to put together. It was really a central theme of the film, and I'm going to direct this to Russ because I think you're the only one who is not protected by tenure at this table, except for Chad. And the questions go something like this: is the existence of tenure a problem leading to poor teachers in Missoula? And then a couple follow-up questions from another person. What does Missoula do to remove bad teachers and reward good teachers? Does the current contract, Janice has talked about the union and the national unions, and the film was very critical of teacher unions. Do you know if the current contract prevents the disciplining of teachers?
I have no idea. But I look at this question from my perspective, coming from the for-profit world, from the corporate world. And it would be inconceivable that somebody in a sales position or a marketing position would be able to stay at their job if they were bad at it, just because they'd been there for 3 years. So I know it's a very touchy subject, and I don't understand all of the ramifications here, but I do think that looking at how tenure developed in the public schools, and I think it's 3 years for tenure, versus, 7 or 8 for university, something like that. I think there has to be something modified there, and there has to be some negotiation so that when you do have a teacher who may not be suited for a particular area of teaching or whatever it might be, that there are ways to try and remediate that, and if that can't happen, then help them find another profession.
Well, I'm sorry, I just had to say this. So, to the original question referring to what does Missoula do to get rid of bad teachers, I actually don't know because I've had a bad teacher, and 3 years later, my little sister's still having the bad teacher. And nothing has changed. She's still teaching very poorly, and I'm coming out of there not with any educational gain, and it's teachers that are bad that turn kids off from school, and I don't know what you guys want to do to change that, but something needs to happen because I don't care what tenure it is, bad teachers should not be in the school systems at all.
Okay, so we'll shift the burden then to the superintendent and the representative of the teachers union to answer that question.
Okay. Number one, I'd like to say I'm not on tenure. I have no tenure. I have a contract. That's it. And I will tell you that this district, since I've been here, and I haven't been here that long, we have non-renewed teachers. We have non-renewed teachers that weren't doing a good job. And we have dealt with administrators who weren't doing a good job. And that's all happened here just recently. It's accountability. And I've taken criticism for some of those moves. But if we're going to truly move this school district forward, those are the decisions that we need to make. We have a union that understands that it's important we have the very best teachers in the classroom. We have people in our union, Janice and Dave Severson before Janice, that recognized when we were having a difficult time with an educator, and we have dealt with that successfully. And we will continue to try to help teachers that are having trouble, but when it comes push to shove, we're gonna do what's necessary, because it's the students that are the most important here. We need to make sure that students have the very best teacher in the classroom. Now, I will tell you that the current system is a little cumbersome, to say the least. But I believe that the union and the school district can work together to make the system more efficient, and the administrators at the building level and myself have a responsibility. If a teacher comes into the district, we have 3 years to make sure that they meet our standards. And if they don't meet our standards, we need to make a decision. You're not going to work here. That's difficult to do. But in terms of where this district needs to go, and we're heading in that direction, those are the tough decisions that we need to make. And I believe that this community is expecting us to make them.
Okay, Janice, in the film, this is a follow-up question for you. In the film, they had the award-winning teacher, master teacher from California, that was explaining the discipline procedures in his contract, and they were, as Alex just said, they were extremely cumbersome. How do you see the procedures in the Missoula contract?
Well, currently, teacher tenure is a pretty hot button, not just for the community, but for teachers. Because it's so dependent upon everybody doing their job. It's dependent upon the principal or the administrator assigned to do the evaluation, to do the paperwork. And if everybody's doing their job, then removing a teacher who is not qualified to teach is not that difficult. But it does require a vigilant administrator. And it does require, going back to one of the earlier questions, that administrator is in the building. Tenure, all tenure is what the Fifth Amendment guarantees to everybody else, and that's the right of due process. That's what tenure is, the right of due process. It is not for life. It's not like being a Supreme Court justice. So, I don't see tenure as a bad thing, but it does force everybody to do their job.
Okay. Do we have a tenure-related question at the mic?
Well, union-related, yeah, so along those lines. Happens that there's Wi-Fi in here, so I looked up quick because it really set up that charter schools don't have these problem teachers because they don't have a union. Doesn't say that, but that's a possible jump you could make. So I quick wanted to look up and see of those charter schools how the union played into that. And the Green Dot Charter School that they pointed out in there as one of the glowing examples was actually unionized in 2007. And the other school that they pointed to as a glowing example was the Finnish school system. And their union membership in teachers is 95%. General population is 76%. What they don't have that we have is the poverty rate. So.
Oh, what?
The poverty rate, which the film does point out that the poverty rate plays into it, but that may weigh more heavily than the unions.
Is there a comment on that, on those observations? Go ahead,
I've been really intrigued by being on various committees with the school district. What do you think the poverty rate is in the Missoula County Public Schools? Is it called Title I?
Well, we've got a free and reduced lunch.
Free and reduced lunch program. What do you think it is in Missoula? Just take a guess.
I think it would probably be higher than most of us would expect.
Yeah, you're looking at about 50% overall, and that's with, and there are a lot of kids and a lot of families that don't report. But we're close to 50% free and reduced lunch. In some of our schools, we have 85% free and reduced lunch, 75%, 65%. But let me just make one quick comment. Just because kids are poor doesn't mean they can't learn. And in the Missoula County Public Schools, I've cited the goals, the 5 very specific goals. There are no excuses or alibis for students not succeeding. That's being embedded in our culture, in our community, that all students will be successful. I've stated the goal that we're going to achieve 100% graduation, and some people look at me like it's not going to happen. And I say it's going to happen, because we're going to set high expectations for everyone in this community, and it will become part of our culture, an expectation that regardless of where students come from, we are going to be there to lift them up to succeed.
Can we redefine success?
Excuse me?
I just wonder if we can define success in a way to get them there.
Success will be, number one, that we are there throughout their educational experience, regardless of what the circumstances may be, that we will be there to support them, to care about them, and to give them the confidence and the courage to continue on, regardless of what the circumstances are in their life, that they're going to go on and they're going to graduate and they're going to go beyond that. That's what we're here for. And in that philosophy, in that reality, we are not buying any excuses or alibis for anyone about anything.
Okay, we're going to build on that, because that clearly was one of the summary points at the end of the film, that is high expectations for everyone. Now, the next question goes to another one of the expectations, curriculum. It said that we need a world-class curriculum, and we have at least 2 people at this table with degrees in curriculum, one who teaches in curriculum, Rhea Ashmore. And the question that is asked in this, do the Missoula County schools follow a world-class curriculum?
I believe they do, excluding the requirement to learn a second language. I think that is incumbent upon all Americans and all schools to insist that every student know a second language.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would like you to, because I'd like to know.
I feel we can do better. I feel that we need to take a good hard look at what constitutes academic achievement, even beyond credit attainment. I think we need to take a good hard look at the world and what the world requires in order to be successful. We've reviewed our graduation requirements and we've increased them, but I think we have a ways to go, and it goes beyond just credit attainment. And through our 21st Century Schools initiative, I believe we'll come to a conclusion that is very clear in terms of what the expectations are for our students regarding our curriculum.
Russ, what is the business community, consumer of our graduates of our public schools, what do they think about our curriculum?
I don't know the specifics about the curriculum. All I know is that when I talk to an entrepreneur who's looking to come here, or a business that's looking to relocate, or somebody just interested in investing in a company here, probably one of the first things they ask is, what kind of education system do you have? How many graduate, how many go on to college, what's the talent pool? And they always say that the measure of a community's future economic success is its current educational excellence. And to me, it comes down to just a very economic issue. If you don't have a great education system, people vote with their feet. They either leave or they don't come here. And I think that education is becoming a much more competitive business. I mean, we're seeing it with the charter schools, and you know, if I could go across the street to a school or I could go 2 miles to a school, people are voting with their feet. And I commend Alex and the whole school system. I don't know if we have the very best curriculum yet. There's a number of people who are looking at that and working on that process, but I know that we're going to make every effort to get there.
Mm-hmm.
May I comment, Jim?
Yes, if you would.
You know, in Missoula, we have a cycle of curriculum review. And so every 5 years, the subject area will take a look at their curriculum. Now, in terms of world class, there's not anything up here that says that's a world class curriculum and that's where we're all going. Because every 5 years, the world has changed so much that what it was world class 5 years ago isn't world class anymore. And so what's important is that we are continually reviewing and we're taking a look at what the demands are in society. And world-class curriculum isn't just reading, writing, and arithmetic and doing a rap about multiplication. World-class curriculum includes critical thinking and creativity and a way to collaborate with your neighbors and the other people in the workforce. That's part of a world-class curriculum. And it's not static. It keeps changing.
Well,
Chad, you had a comment?
yeah, well, another thing about curriculum is that students, as surprising as it may sound, actually do care about our curriculum, because if we can't find relevance in what we're learning, we're not going to want to learn. And I'd also like to, I noticed that your original question was addressed towards businessmen. And I was actually a couple weeks ago on another thing with Dr. Apostle, where as a community, we collaborated and talked about issues about education. And curriculum's also a concern in the community because Missoula is a really strong community and we do care about the education. But curriculum is something that really needs to be looked at because it's affecting our community, our students, our business people. Everyone is actually really feeding off how well our curriculum is. And the better our curriculum is, the better our community is going to get.
You know, Chad mentioned that, you know, our community is concerned about our curriculum. And I must say that, you know, right now, Graduation Matters Missoula, we're going to keep kids in school. Our Schools for the 21st Century initiative is going to make sure that what we're doing in our schools will prepare our students for the current century, which is the 21st century. We're going into 11 years into the 21st century. And the third initiative is to make sure all kids are successful. Well, let me tell you about our community. When we embarked on the 21st Century Initiative, I promised the school board, because we didn't have the money to hire the people to help us put this plan together, our plan together, not the consultant's plan. But I said to the board, we're going to need $150,000 that we don't have, but I'm going to go out into the community and I'm going to find the money to support this initiative. As of last Friday, this community has given nearly $120,000 towards the 21st Century Initiative. That's the kind of community we have. So it's not that the community just has a concern. They're saying, look, we're with you, let's move this district forward. And the only reason we can move this district forward is because this community for many, many years has supported this school district through thick and thin.
Okay.
And just one more comment, please. That this community truly cares, and the staff truly cares. So what we're embarking on is basically the movie that you viewed tonight. Keeping kids in school, having the best possible academic program, and making sure that every student is successful. You can't beat that.
We have a follow-up question from the floor.
I'm not sure that, can you hear me? I'm not sure that it's a follow-up question, but there have been some talk about whether or not there are parts of the film that are relevant, or in what ways the film are relevant to Missoula School District. And I wonder if the panel might talk about, I remember a map in the film, and I think it was with regard to the No Child Left Behind program, and it had different states that showed students at reading level and whether or not, at what percentage of each state had students reading at grade level. And I believe I saw that Montana was at 39%, one of the higher states. So first of all, I don't know if that's an accurate statistic. Would you comment on that? Would you comment on other statistics that might be applicable, such as graduation rates? What are the graduation rates in Missoula today versus 10, 20 years ago? And then also, how successful was Missoula with the No Child Left Behind program?
Okay, in terms of the graduation rate, there are many cities in this country and states that would relish having our graduation rate across the board. Here in Missoula, we're over 80%. That's not good enough for Missoula, but we're moving forward. Last year, we reduced the number of students that dropped out of our schools by 80. That's a reduction of about 47%. The goal is, naturally, no dropouts. All kids are going to graduate through a rigorous curriculum. Now, in terms of our test scores, I would hate to quote anything. It's a great question, but I'm not prepared to respond to it, and I would hate to give you misinformation. But I believe our students are achieving at a very high level when you compare Montana to other states in this country.
Are you talking about reading at grade level?
Math, reading and math.
Well, can you comment on the map that was in the film with regard to reading at grade level?
You mean the 39%?
The 39%,
figure?
yes.
I believe that's extremely low.
Okay.
I believe we're much higher than that.
I can comment on that. That's the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is a standardized test administered once every 2 years, and we're randomly almost always involved. 39% were at proficient. I'm not saying this correctly. They're looking for how many students were proficient, keeping in mind that below that is basic. Students can read, so.
But I thought the term was reading at grade level.
It was the term proficient, which is actually used statistically. So the film then was erroneous.
In the film they said reading at grade level.
Then they were not using the term correctly if they were referring to the NAEP. And I noticed NAEP as the test that was being viewed with those little flags across the United States. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, we have the criterion reference test where over 80% of our students are proficient.
And I'm sorry, and what does proficient mean?
Reading above grade level.
Above grade level, okay. And then lastly, would you comment on how Missoula did with the No Child Left Behind program?
We have work to do as it relates to No Child Left Behind, and what I'm communicating to our staff is that No Child Left Behind is just but one program. Race to the Top is another program that the Obama administration is very high on. I don't want our staff to be confused or limited in terms of these standardized tests. What I want is for our teachers to focus on students succeeding in the classroom. And if we're moving in that direction, we won't have to worry about No Child Left Behind or Race to the Top. Our kids will be at the top of the heap as it relates to student achievement.
And I understand that, but with regard to the No Child Left Behind program, there was a statistic for Missoula. I remember something about it in the paper, and I'm just interested to know how Missoula did compared to the rest of the United States.
And I would have to give you specific data. Our high schools, we have our high schools